I started Upekkha about 6 years ago with three other partners. It's a accelerator for founders that are building from India for the rest of the world. We're also called as the Y Combinator for Indian software startups. So Upekkha is a place where you can reduce your blunder when you are starting out as a founder. One of the long-term, I would say, idea that animates me is that I want to see software will be the opening batsman for India as a product nation. An Indian founder in his 30s, when he's moving to the US, it's almost like transplanting a banyan tree from India to Bay Area. It is easy to earn a dollar than to earn a rupee.
Some of the best movies that you would like to recommend to a budding entrepreneur.
Rocket Singh.
Wow, that is an underrated gem.
AI shift is as big as the internet shift. In AI, every need can be solved 100x different and better. From an India perspective, what I would say is that, India's strength is its talent. And if you actually survey Bay Area companies or enterprise company, 1 out of 2 big enterprise companies have Indians in it.
Exactly. In the highest position.
In the highest position.
Yeah.
Right.
Welcome to another podcast episode here at Simulated Reality by AIM Media House. We have co-founder and partner of Upekkha, Rajan, here with us. Rajan, welcome to AIM Media House.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
Doing fantastic.
That's lovely to hear. Rajan, first up, I want to ask you before anything else, because the name sounded very fascinating to me. In Sanskrit, Upekkha means letting go. I am from Kolkata. In Bengali, there's a very similar sounding word called Upekkha, which means waiting. But I want to find out what is the meaning of the name when it comes to the company. So if you can tell us, how did the name come about? What does it mean in terms of the company?
So in simple words, Upekkha means stillness in Buddhist. The right English word for that is equanimity. The word Upekkha itself comes from Pali. So my partner, Prasanna, he's big into Vipassana meditation. And before he started Upekkha, he went to Vipassana meditation. And to use the word Upekkha, that came to him during his meditation time, right? So that's the background for this. But if I were to sort of extend that, the meaning for like why he chose that, is the reason is that, we all work with founders. I mean, Upekkha works with founders, and founders go through lots of ups and downs. Equanimity means that, you need to be in a calm and a still state when things are happening up and down, right? So we want to actually work with founders, help them maintain their calm when they are going through their ups and downs. And that was the reason, he chose Upekkha.
Very similar to MS Dhoni qualities. Be calm even when the match is going.
He's a perfect epitome of Upekkha, right? It doesn't matter what happens externally. He'll just, sort of perform at his peak.
Very important for all the budding founders as well. Budding entrepreneurs as well. Try to keep your Upekkha. Try to keep your Zen mode.
Be Upekkha.
Be Upekkha. We want to definitely find out and learn a lot more about Upekkha. But before that, we want to find out a little about the person that Rajan is. So if you can tell us in short, what were the growing years like? What was your hometown like? What was the childhood like? Then a little bit of the career. And then how did the entrepreneurial journey start?
It's always an interesting question when somebody asks me, where are you from? My mother tongue is Tamil. My full name is Tyagarajan. Tyagarajan M. The short version of my name is Rajan, a name that I picked from Delhi. So I grew up in Delhi, and I spent close to 19 years of my life in Delhi. And I did my engineering in Hyderabad, and then many years in Bangalore, and then now I'm living in SF, right? So I've been in multiple different places, but I would say that, I've always looked and followed the places where there is innovation that is happening. I studied in Hyderabad, but then I would always make trips to Bangalore to either attend rock concerts or attend IT conferences because Bangalore was the place that, things like this was happening. I went to Hyderabad to study computer science at IIIT Hyderabad, and schooling, like I said, I did it in Delhi. So that's briefly about me in terms of where I grew up and what I did. Yeah, I started Upekkha about 6 years ago with 3 other partners, and it's a accelerator for founders that are building from India for the rest of the world. We're also called as the Y Combinator for Indian software startups. Before Upekkha, I actually worked at a company called Intuit. Intuit are the makers of QuickBooks, and I was the product lead for building QuickBooks for markets outside of US and then eventually India. I have over 20 years of work experience, worked at a company called Sapient, then worked at a startup which got acquired. Then I was part of 2 startups. I graduated from Triple IT with a computer science and a specialization in computer vision. So I did a computer vision startup in 2007, and I did a mobile video streaming startup right after that. So I have experience in engineering, then doing startups. Startup world is what led me to build products. And I learned my product management while at Intuit. And before Intuit and Upekkha, I also spent some time helping Indian founders go through M&A in the cross-border space. Was involved with 6 or 7 companies that went through M&A. So my background, engineering, then product management, some amount of M&A, and then the last 6 years helping founders get to their product market fit from India, building for the global world.
You know, you gave the Y Combinator analogy as well, which is a very fitting analogy, to be honest. But say if one has to ask you to explain to an industry outsider, or I'll make it simpler, explain to an 8-year-old, what is Upekkha and what does it do? In
short, I love the 8-year-old explanation, right? If you're playing chess, if you want to go from a rating of 500 to 1000, the simplest thing is to not make blunders, right? Blunders mean mistakes that where it is looking like a self-goal, right? You don't want to do that, right? If you eliminate blunders, then your odds of winning goes very, very high. You improve your rating, your odds of winning go very, very high. So Upekkha is this place which helps founders reduce first-time blunders. And how do they do that? By making sure that you make a list of these things that you have to look at. And like we come from our own experience of looking at how to build product, how to go from the 0 to 1 state of the business, and then say that, look, these are the blunders that others made. Please make sure that you don't do that. What happens is that when we share that with the founders, then instead of them taking 4 years to get to the outcome of a certain revenue milestone, they do that in 2 years. So Upekkha is a place where you can reduce your blunder when you are starting out as a founder.
There's a major part of what Upekkha does is that get that incredible first capital boost for those entrepreneurs as well. So tell us a little about that.
Yeah, so we invest similar to how a global accelerator like Y Combinator or 500 Global does. We invest 125K in the startups that we work with. And then we run a 4 to 6 months program where we help them set the foundation for reducing these blunders.
I want to ask you that when the idea to start Upekkha happened, the entrepreneur in Rajan, what were the problems that entrepreneur was looking to solve when you wanted to start Upekkha, and then how did it start?
Yeah, it's a great question. Before I started Upekkha, I think I've already had worked with more than 100 founders in the B2B space trying to get to their 0 to 1 journey. I ran an accelerator within Intuit called Combinator, which again was helping engineers get their first version of the product out, get their product market fit, and then a certain business unit will adopt it to scale that particular idea within their business unit. So I had experience of helping in the 0 to 1 state. And one of the things that me and my other co-founder, Prasanna, we found out, Prasanna actually used to work for Microsoft and he was the CTO for the Microsoft Accelerator. What we realized is that the founders that are building in the B2B space, they have very different needs and very different, I would say, characteristic when they are building their businesses. Unlike B2C, where you just have to iterate something, throw it on the wall and see what sticks and iterate 18 times. In B2B, you could be a lot more thoughtful and you don't also need a lot of capital to be able to do that. So we said, we've seen so many of these B2B founders who with just simple amount of guidance will improve their odds of getting to that product market fit, getting past that first, I would say, orbit of survival. Can we bring our know-how? Can we bring our network? And can we help these founders get there? One of the long-term, I would say, idea that animates me is that I want to see India be able to create a lot of software products or create product in general, right? So we figured that if we build software and if we build it for the global market, then we can achieve this. We had this feeling that, software will be the opening batsman for India as a product nation. So that led us to actually say that, we'll work with software only companies where founders are building from India to the rest of the world. We had the experience of working with so many founders and said, bring that knowledge. And we also were very good at building founder communities And for the last 10, 15 years, me, Prasanna, and my other partner, we all built a lot of founder communities. We said, can we bring all of these resources and networks and improve the odds of success for a founder? So that's the genesis of Upekkha.
Upekkha emphasizes the value of founder networks. So how can Indian startup founders effectively utilize such networks when transitioning to the States?
Oh, it's a fantastic question. I actually extend that question of network into what I call as roots. So what happens is that Indian founders, when they're thinking about building global businesses, either they could move to the US when they're doing their post-graduation and things like that, in which case they spend 10 years working at some companies, building personal networks, building professional networks, and those networks come in handy for, let's say, things like hiring and investments and things like that. Now, when an Indian founder moves from India to building a global business, let's say when he's after his 30s, then those networks are missing. So they don't have roots. So what they need to be doing is they need to tap into the network that they have already built. I actually liken this to saying that, an Indian founder in his 30s, when he's moving to the US, it's almost like transplanting a banyan tree from India to Bay Area, right? So you have to, again, spend a lot of time, finding your roots in the new soil. And the way to do that would be tap into your previous professional network, tap into your previous personal network. A lot of founders, they don't actually put out on LinkedIn and saying, hey, I'm here, I'm trying to actually meet potential clients, or I'm here just to making a professional visit. And doing that would reactivate some of their past connections and then say, hey, I'm here, why don't we actually meet? Or they should, if they don't have any access to such professional networks or personal networks, then they should actually piggyback on several networks that are coming up, one such as Upekkha or any other investor network that are coming up. They should tap into that to actually leverage what is happening in the US.
When I was looking at your LinkedIn, when I was listening very recently, Rajan has started a podcast series as well, an audio podcast series. When I was listening to those and I was looking at your LinkedIn posts, so there was one thing that I came across, which during the podcast right now, you've already mentioned twice or maybe thrice. That is the 0 to 1 challenge. So if one has to ask you, what's the most common obstacle that Indian founders face in achieving product market fit in the US?
So the first thing that I say is that, and this is almost almost foundational. I say it is easy to earn $1 than to earn a rupee. It's not something that I have said it first time. There are many, many founders have said this in the past, and people that are building software businesses actually have said this in the past, that it is easy to earn $1 than to earn a rupee. The other thing that ends up causing a lot of trouble is most founders don't understand what to build, right? They have the way people come up with and build startup is they say, oh, okay, look, I found this idea, or I came up with this idea. Let me just get some funding for that. And then let me start hiring some people and then let me go build a product. They don't realize that you have to actually find out if there is going to be any demand for the product or the idea that you're building. So what is important is to have customer conversation early in the cycle, right? That is the other missing piece that happens where they don't involve the customer conversation. And when you're having the customer conversation, you should not go to the customer or a prospect and then say, hey, will you buy this product for me? What do you think about this? You need to have more open-ended conversation, try to understand what is going on in their life. And then you have to figure out whether this product idea that you have is going to be solving a problem in their life or not. I often say this, that, it is the job of a customer to define the problem, and it is the job of the founder to define the solution. And what happens is they do it reverse. The founder ends up defining the problem that he thinks that the customer has. And then the customer says that I want these features in the solution, right? Which is always a wrong way to build, because you will always going to be in a feature spiral there. So that's the second part. And then other mistakes are little smaller. I would say that, they don't position it well. From a global perspective, the biggest issue that I have seen is that founders don't package their solution well. They don't think about this in simple packages. Like if you're building, let's say if you're creating a coffee offering, right? You should say this is small and this is large and this is medium, right? Then people will get it. But instead of that, you say that this is 16 ml, that is 17 ml, then nobody will kind of get it, right? And the 16, 17 ml is more a technical framing. Small, medium, large is a very common, explain it like I'm 8 framing, right? So packaging is a place Indian founders make a lot of mistakes when taking things globally.
So I want to ask you, when it comes to the challenges that AI startups face, you mentioned so many of them, overcoming the 0 to 1 challenge, when that happens, does overcoming the 1 to 10 and then 10 to 50 become easier?
So I would actually say that I don't know of any startup in the world which is facing the 1 to 10 phase of a AI startup, because most of the startups are still facing the 0 to 1 space. Well, if you put OpenAI as a startup, I would say, yeah, sure. Like, I mean, they are facing the 1 to 10 or like, beyond the 10 challenge. Most of the startups, I still feel from an AI or a Gen AI perspective, are still in the 0 to 1 phase of trying to figure out what the product market fit is. And I would say that, in case of AI, there are certain nuances that I am observing which are very different, right? While it is important for you to understand what customers want, in AI, every need can be solved 100x different and better. So one of the things that I look for in AI startup is, are they creating a magical user experience? That is the differentiation, right? They may be solving the same problem, like, keeping track of contacts, keeping track of customer relationships. But if they don't bring a magical user experience, then users are not going to pay attention. They're not going to adopt it, right? The other thing that they have to also keep in mind is you created a magic, you created a wow, but like, have they watched the show and then, they clapped their hands and went away? Are they going to be retained? So what are you going to do to get them to come back again and then retain them? In the 0 to 1 state, most of the startups across the world are actually facing with these two problems. Most people say that I'm coming up with Gen AI. They'll say I'm using this agentic framework, but they're not thinking about creating magical user experience. And if they don't have the magical user experience, then customers are not going to leave their old solution, old enterprise solution of using a CRM. They are not going to come and check this out. And once they come and check out, you have to actually make sure that they stay back. So those are two challenges that AI startups are facing.
Let's talk a little about one of Upekkha's philosophy. The philosophy is about calmness during chaos, as you mentioned, as well as the name goes as well. How do you advise founders to maintain this resilience while navigating through the US startup ecosystem's, very volatile atmosphere?
One of the simplest thing that I suggest is have a buddy that you can go and talk to, especially someone who is at a very similar stage, right? When you have a founder buddy and you can go and talk to him, then he can be your agony aunt. He can be a person who can actually share with you on what are things that has worked for you or not. More than anything, he is a person who is like a shoulder to cry on, right? And one of the things that I've seen that works the most, works the best, is having someone to talk to and share the problems. So often what happens is, you say, man, this is something that is not working. And then there are a few other people who say, it's not working for me also. That gives you a sigh of relief, saying that I am not the only person who is kind of going through this. And then that relieves a lot of stress. And then that allows you to then calmly process what is going on. So one of the things in terms of Upekkha, in terms of staying calm, that we focus on is by enabling a community. Right? Community of founders, of people who are at similar stage. When we design a program, what we do is we do inter-cohort buddy and intra-cohort buddies. Saying that, okay, these are founders that you should work with closely, and these are 2-3 founders who are slightly ahead of you, and these are the folks that you need to be in touch with. It's a very, very simple technique, but I have seen this work for the last 10 years. It's something that we have inculcated inside the Upekkha's design ever since we started.
Do you all conduct, say, meets as well, where the founders get to meet and there's networking happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do that every quarter. We do that in different cities. We do have an annual conference. So we have a heavy emphasis on community and peer learning. We think of that as an explicit design that needs to go into how we design our programs.
I got to know that the size of the team of Upekkha is quite less as far as number of people is concerned, but the clientele that you guys handle, the number of people that you guys handle, it's mammoth. So just tell us the numbers and tell us how is Upekkha able to achieve that?
At this moment, we are about 12 people, 4 partners, and then 3 leaders, and then rest of the team supporting us. We were remote from day one, right? And one of the things that we always wanted to keep in mind is to actually say that community is going to be like a central part of this. So the program, the experiences that we design, we keep community as a core central part of this. So we are able to scale to 165 startups. This is because we have built a community of 350 founders who help each other. It is not that, this small team is just making sure that they are coordinating with everybody, and then they are like making sure that they are program managing the experience for them. It is leveraging the community of saying, okay, here are things that we have designed. So we create structures and framework, and we leverage the community to actually make sure that those structures and frameworks are executed, and founders are talking to each other. It's not that, they are talking to us and therefore we become the bottleneck. They are talking to each other, and that's how we are able to scale this.
Let's talk about strategies when it comes to funding. How do you guide founders, especially say new founders, young budding founders, in optimizing their funding strategies, particularly when securing safe notes and entering the US market?
In terms of safe notes and entering the US market, the moment you enter the US market and you're an Indian founder, there are a lot of regulatory compliances that come in the way. So what we do is we've written a guidebook, and we've also published that as a blog post. And that is one of our most popular blog posts on how to actually get an incorporation done if you're an Indian founder. And we've also realized that, that is something that keeps changing. So therefore, we keep updating the blog and the guidebook as well. But more than that, see, fundraising at a very, very early stage, when you are like at a pre-seed or a seed stage, is all about 2 or 3 things. One is, are you going to build a rocket ship? Right? And are you the right person to build that rocket ship? And can I trust you? These are the 3 questions that investors are asking. So as long as you are able to tell a convincing story of saying that the business that I'm building is going to become very large, like a Freshworks or a Zoho or like a Flipkart or like a Zomato, right? As long as the investors are able to visualize that picture. You mentioned about LinkedIn post. One of the LinkedIn posts that became very popular is where I said, funding is not about spreadsheet. It is more about like storytelling, right? Where you are able to tell that story in a very convincing way, where the passion that you are able to bring into that conversation is what that investor is backing, saying, okay, he's thinking very large. He is very passionate about making that dream come true. And there are people between him and I that I can call up and then do some due diligence on the founder. So these are the 3 elements that go in. And these are the things that we help the founders to actually make sure that they are presenting when they are speaking to an investor. And it is not more complicated than that.
You compared transplanting a business from Bangalore to the Bay Area as almost like uprooting a banyan tree from Bangalore and then planting it in Bay Area, as a massive challenge as it sounds itself is. So what cultural nuances do Indian founders often overlook when moving their operations to the US?
Cultural nuances could be many things. So let me see if I can really simplify this. So one I would say is that when you're selling to India, and this is something that I'm talking from my experience, and when I was building even products at Intuit, and then something that I've seen like, at least 50 times working with startups. When you're selling to India, you will have to make a pitch for saying that you are going to say, you're going to actually make money. If you actually make a pitch that says that I'm going to save time for you, it won't work.
Yeah.
Right? But if you are actually selling in the US, if you actually make a claim saying that use my product, use my software, you'll be able to make money, you again won't be taken seriously, because people will be like, look, I don't know how you're making that claim. Because you're making that claim, there'll be you will be questioned. Right? So that is a big cultural shift, I would say, in terms of how you present. So it could be the same software, it could be a CRM software, it could be an accounting software. Here, you have to make the pitch of saying that use this software, like, you save some time in bookkeeping. Because you save that time in bookkeeping, you can spend that time talking to customers. Therefore, you can make money. But that's not how you can pitch in the US. You have to actually say that, look, you can save some time, and that is the value for you. And that is a big difference that happens once you understand how people treat time. In India, we don't value time, because certain countries like our country, where time is not the premium, money is premium. Like, people call this a saying that, India, some of the emerging economies are money poor, time rich. So if somebody is already time rich, you cannot go and sell them time, right? Developed economies are places where they will already have a lot of money, but they are very short on time. So they are the opposite, where they are money rich, time poor. So this is a cultural difference that you have to keep in mind when you are actually designing your value proposition.
And even the problem solving has to be different based on location to location and environment to environment, as you mentioned.
Right.
Let's talk about mentorship and growth a bit, because especially Upekkha has played that part so actively in the lives of so many entrepreneurs and in the lives of so many companies and so many startups. So Upekkha provides access to a rich mentor network. What role would you say mentorship plays in a founder's US expansion, and how should they seek out the right mentors?
So the way we actually have thought about mentors within Upekkha is that we have a list of mentors that are listed on our website. We think of our initial program and we equate that to a general doctor checkup, right? So like somebody comes and talks to us and they say, okay, my ICP is not working, my messaging is not working. So we have a basic conversation with them. And then let's say that they're building a dev tool like a product, right? Focused on dev tool. So then what we will do is we'll connect them to someone who's actually worked on dev tools before. So it's almost like a general doctor having a simple evaluation and then saying, maybe what you need to do is you need to go and talk to a cardiologist, right? So that's how we've thought about our mentor network, where we do a basic assessment and then we have created a roster of mentors. And then if they have dev tool related problem, we send them there. Or if they have like a sales compensation problem, then we send them to someone who has done sales compensation.
When I was doing research about you and the company, I came across the fact that Upekkha has invested in over 80 SaaS startups and over 40 AI startups. What does Upekkha specially look for when investing in a new company, in a new startup?
So we are looking for somebody who has deep domain expertise. We're looking for someone who spent a lot of time understanding a particular domain. One of the things that we know from our experience is if you don't come from the domain, it'll take you at least 2 years to understand that particular domain. So that is something that is very, very important for us. And then we are looking for founders who are thinking about big things to actually achieve. So someone who wants to actually solve and create a big impact. I would say that deep domain expertise combined with someone who has a large ambition to create a big impact, and someone who's shown that they can be very resourceful in solving problems. So these are broadly the 3 areas that we look for when we are looking to invest in founders.
Very recently, you have kickstarted another journey, and that journey has been of a podcaster. This is the second time that you have done this. So I want to ask you that how did this start? What made you think, okay, I should start a podcast series?
So this was like a restart of a podcast that we had done before. The name of the podcast is Pivotal Clarity. One of the things that I noticed is that there is a lot of chaos, and this happens that whenever there are new shifts that are happening in the market, there's a lot of frenzy that goes on, and there are a lot of experiments that go on, and that creates both enthusiasm, a lot of interest in trying new things out, but it also leads to a lot of confusion. So my thought process around this was, can I speak to people that are doing very, very interesting AI projects? They're building AI companies, they're doing interesting AI research, some combination of deep technology, but also product and business, where you say, oh, this is an interesting project and I want to know more about it. And those who are doing this, who are at the cusp of doing these cutting edge things, talk to them and find out what choices did they make, and see if that can give clarity to others who are building that on how to actually make choices when they jump into making similar projects. So Pivotal Clarity was about creating clarity on pivotal topics around AI.
Through the podcasts that I have hosted both for AI Media House and prior to that in my former projects as well, I've been able to talk to a lot of people who have been angel investors in a lot of companies, a lot of AI companies, a lot of them having become pretty big now. And if there is one thing that I've heard from a lot of them, they have mentioned that, of course, we often invest in a product when the problem solving ability of that product is incredible. But there are multiple times when we just look at the entrepreneur, the founder, and we see great ability just in the person, and we invest in the person. How much of that has happened with you and Upekkha as well? And how important is a balance of both of them when, say, somebody is going for an investment pitch?
This is a topic where I think, the world is split a little bit. Somebody who says that, I look after market, and somebody who says that, I look at the founders. I belong to the camp that of the later kind, where I look at the founder, not as much as the market. I heard this from a very smart guy. He said, angel investment or even pre-seed investment is like almost like buying lottery tickets where you know one digit, right? So the world is split between saying that one digit is his market or one digit is his founder. And I believe that one digit is his founder.
Interesting.
Because at the stage at which angels or pre-seed investors is that the most unchangeable variable is the founder, right? What happens with market is that when you're coming up with at a very early stage, that goes through a lot of change. Like I said, I've worked with about 100 plus founders in Upekkha. And before that, one of the things that I've noticed is practically every startup that I've looked at that has worked out, I've gone through at least 2 or 3 pivots, which means the markets have changed. So even if you had invested with the point of view saying that, that one digit in that ticket is about market, I have seen that particular digit change at least thrice, right? So therefore, that digit, I want to actually pick on the founder, saying that founder will figure out that he's in the right market or not and change it. And often enough, I've seen founders have changed that. So therefore, I belong to the camp which says that, that one digit is the founder.
We are almost towards the end of the podcast. Before that, we have 4 short questions left, 2 of them being fun ones and 2 of them being a little more essay type questions. All the Indian students know what I'm talking about. So let's do a little bit of the fun one now. Before the start of the podcast, we found out that Rajan, just like me, is a massive cinema buff.
That's right.
Yes. So I want to ask you some of the best movies that you would like to recommend to a budding entrepreneur.
Rocket Singh.
Wow. That is an underrated gem. A lot of people don't talk about that movie.
I watch it as many times as I can. It is a beautiful movie. We were talking about Ranbir Kapoor. It is one of his most underrated movies ever. And that is a movie in the Bollywood, in Bollywood that I would suggest that, every Indian founder should look at.
Very interesting choice. 9 out of 10 people wouldn't have said this as an answer. Internationally?
Internationally, I like a movie called Silicon Valley. Right? That's the movie that I absolutely, loved it. And I mean, interesting enough, I would also suggest another series. It's not a movie. That's also called Silicon Valley.
I think the series one I know about. There's Kumail Nanjiani in it, ain't it?
Yes. The Silicon Valley movie was also fantastic. That was very, very old, I guess almost 25 years old. But one of the best, founder movies that I would recommend.
The world is looking at India very, very differently now than how it used to look at us, say, 15 years back or 20 years back. A small example is if you look at the startup culture that is happening or the AI boom that is happening. What caused this paradigm shift in the last 10, 15 years? And you've been working there now. The company, Upekkha, has been working in the States for the last 6 years. How is the Bay Area and the industry there looking at India right now?
I would say that the AI space is a little early, so there are a lot of answers that have to be figured out. However, it's a very, very important, I would say, shift that has happened, right, in the last 10, 15 years. The last one was mobile/cloud, but the big one was really the internet. So the AI shift is as big as the internet shift. From an India perspective, what I would say is that, India's strength is its talent, right? And if you actually survey Bay Area companies or enterprise company, 1 out of 2 big enterprise companies have Indians in it.
Exactly. In the highest position.
In the highest position,
yeah.
Right? So this is whether it is the startups or whether it is big tech companies, right? And because of internet, because of globalization, what had happened is that the front office and the back office, and thanks to also COVID, it didn't matter where it resides, right? So we anyway had the best talent. And then the front office/back office did not matter when there is internet and when there is direct flight. So what this has meant is customers are willing to get products from wherever it is created. It did not need to be created in Bay Area only. They didn't have to actually meet people physically to actually purchase product. That is the biggest change that has enabled Indians to actually think about building globally, right? The other thing that has happened, which you also pointed out, is that the local market need also has caught up, right? So India has a great local market that can consume many of the offering and many of the products that are created in India itself. And I would say also the other change that has happened is the geopolitical powers have gone through different, I would say, adjustment. Like for instance, now nobody talks about China, right? So that means it's a great opportunity for India, both from a global perspective as well as a local perspective. And Indian government is also ensuring that, the local markets, the local players and providers are getting the impetus that they need to ensure that they are succeeding, right? So at a global level, everybody is looking at India as that stable economy, stable political spot where business can flourish. And that's one part. And then the talent exists. And then the behavior of the customers are changing in terms of saying that, they can buy products from anywhere. It doesn't matter that, they have to only be physically closely present. I would say it's a confluence of these three factors that makes India as a great place for the next 10 years of innovation to unlock.
Before we let you go, one last question to you would be, if somebody has to ask you, what advice or a couple of advices would you like to give to young Indian entrepreneurs who want to enter the tech world, who want to enter the AI startup world?
If you want to enter the AI startup world, what I would say is that you have to do what I call as tinkering, right?
Tinkering.
Yeah, tinkering is play around, right? So there are many of these fantastic AI tools that are coming up, and you should play around. In terms of what skills you need, I would say that people are talking about saying that programming is that you need to have some basic understanding of programming, and that basic understanding of programming, you can just, ask a voice command and then use it to learn it, right? So you can just go to ChatGPT and then say, okay, just teach me a little bit of basics of Python programming. So I would say that's one. You don't need to know Python programming. A lot of the tools are there that can actually build applications for you. So that's one. The second I would say is that you need to understand a little bit about marketing. And anybody who's good with YouTube, Instagram or Twitter, so you need to understand a little bit of marketing. So to be successful in both of this, you need to play around with tools that are coming up now and how they are making it easy. If this question was asked 3-4 years ago, I would have said, oh, you know what, you need to understand basics of programming. Now with Cursor and many other tools may not need that. And similarly, a couple of years ago, it would have been something like you need to write blogs and put your thoughts out there. But now it is around Instagram and it's around YouTube shorts and things like that, right? So you have to play around with these tools, learn some of these skills, which are going to be very, very critical, and then use the combination of these two to come up with ideas. And like I said earlier, the first idea that you come up with may not be the idea that will eventually work. So you have to give yourself time and resource to try out thrice, 4 times and things like that for you to be able to come up with a idea that takes off.
Rajan, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for giving us your time here at A Media House.
Thank you so much. It was such a fun conversation.
Absolutely. Likewise. Ladies and gentlemen, do write in the comments, how did you find this podcast episode of Simulated Reality? And of course, keep watching this space for more such exclusive content just like this. This is me, your friend Korak. See you in the next one.